Hey, good evening. Jack Smith, the one who worked for the DOJ that was trying to try Trump, and that second on the documents case, and that second report that we were all waiting for, and they refused to release it because it would say that Trump was a war criminal. It would say that he committed treason. Well, anyways, Jack is going back to The Hague. Jack is going back to the ICC. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Jack Smith. Jack Smith used to try war criminals, people who committed crimes against human rights violations against people, and determined that they were war criminals. Like that shit that happened in Bosnia, like that shit that happened in Chechnya, that kind of shit. That's what Jack does. Remember the International Court determined that Putin was a war criminal? Well, let me tell y'all something. El Salvador and America just got taken to The Hague by Venezuela. Trump came out on the White House website and said that the International Criminal Court was coming against America and Israel unlawfully because of what they did in Gaza. But Venezuela is saying that they're doing human rights violations by detaining those Venezuelans over in El Salvador and CICOT. Okay, so now I'm going to go a little bit back to January 24th. Trump had been president for 4 days. And I did a video and I said, the reason why they closed down this civil rights division of the Department of Justice is because when we start doing human rights violations, nobody will get sued. Then I said, the reason we pulled out of the WHO, the World Health Organization, is because the World Health Organization protects the vulnerable. And when we do human rights violations, they'll shine a light on it. Then I said, the reason why they want so very badly to pull out of NATO is not because they pay for everything, but because NATO holds people accountable when there are human rights violations. Just like we did Germany when they had theirs. Just like America did to Germany when they did those human rights violations during the Holocaust. And let me tell you something. For many, many, many years, Germany could not have a standing army. The biggest division over in Germany was the 3rd Armored Division. You know how I know that? Because I was over there with my dad. And it didn't get disbanded until the 90s. Because I was over there with my husband, my first husband, when it happened. That's how I know. I grew up over there. Like, I was 27 when I came back to the States. But anyway, and I'd been over there since I was like 6. That's when the military did COT tours. That's how long I was over there. And if anybody don't know what a COT tour is, it's continuous overseas travel. I don't think they do it anymore, but they used to do it quite frequently. But anyway, so after that, I was reading an article, and Jack is going back to The Hague. Jack wants Trump to be tried as a fucking war criminal. He wants Trump. Y'all, and you know Jack is slow and methodical. And Jack could have got Trump. He could have got him. If Trump wouldn't have been elected president of the United States, Jack would have got him. Jack would have gotten him. And then I had a person ask me in a question, why can't they do something about it? Why doesn't our president travel? Well, your president doesn't travel because there are laws about rapists going to other countries. That's why your president doesn't travel. And your president has a rape conviction. So he cannot go anywhere he wants to go. Second thing is, your president has 34 felonies. And countries have laws against letting criminals into their countries. And your president is no different. And given the fact that they have done some very shitty things, Trump has done some very shitty things to countries, they don't want him to come. That's why Vance is going everywhere. And you know what else I got to thinking about? Y'all remember when Trump said, he was in a press briefing and they said about the 4 soldiers that got unalived. And he said, I don't know anything about that. Y'all remember that? I fucking told y'all he didn't get security clearance. I freaking told y'all that he didn't get security clearance because he didn't know. You know why he didn't know? Because that was undercover for a very long time. I don't think he has a TSC. I don't think he has clearance. I think Vance is the one who has the clearance. And I think Vance is the one traveling on behalf of the American people, right? I think it's Vance. I think your president is a lame duck. I think he can make the decisions in America, but he can't make the decisions anywhere else. And I think he was uninvited to the G7. So, goodness. Jack is going back to The Hague. He's coming for Trump. Good morning, guys. This is such a good question, and Trump did disavow the ICC, and we are not members of it. We haven't been members since 1986 because we didn't want to give them jurisdiction over the United States. So that is correct, right? But the ICC does have limited jurisdiction over all countries if there is genocide, if there is crimes against humanity, and if there are war crimes, right? But what people don't know is there's this thing called the UN. which we are a member of, the UN can refer to a country to the ICC, and they can prosecute under that. And just so anybody doesn't understand what's going on here, the UN is going to play a key role in America, right? Key role, because we are still members of the Security Council. The UN has a standing army as well. And the ICC, The Hague, has used the UN army to do shit. This is finna get good. That's why his happy ass doesn't leave the United States. I think that is part of the reason. Because he's getting ready to be declared a war criminal. And I'm going to tell you something else. And people are saying, well, he hasn't done anything, blah, blah, blah. Aliens Enemies Act is only activated during times of war. He has declared that there is a war in America. War crimes he is committing. He dug a hole for his fucking self, right? And if Venezuela gets what they want, El Salvador is going to cave. I guarantee it. Because they have trade agreements with other countries. They're not going to risk those trade agreements that bring in more than $15 million a year for Trump. They're not. And so this is going to be an interesting unfolding. And I want you guys, because when I first say these things, I get nervous when I see other things happen. But I honestly think the international world is coming after him. They're not coming after us because they know that we don't want this. But they're going to come after this administration. And I swear before God, I want Marco Rubio, Pam Bundy, Stephen Miller, and that guy who's over the IRS, and J.D. Vance all to go to fucking jail and be tried as war criminals. I do. Because they suborned his decisions, and they encouraged him to do this wild ass shit. And I'm glad that our immunity doesn't stretch internationally. It's only for the United States. Hey guys, I've been looking at a lot of the questions and a lot of the summations on our page. What we need to understand is Trump's immunity, the Supreme Court of the United States is not able to make their ruling giving him immunity international. Trump is subject to international law. Sorry, guys, he's not going to get out of this one, right? His immunity only lies within the confines of the United States, so domestically. The Supreme Court is not the international court. It is a domestic court, okay? The international court is the ICC. The ICC, or The Hague, was created by who? The UN, to prosecute war criminals. That's what y'all aren't getting. This has nothing to do with the United States. This is an international thing. What he did in Gaza is bad, right? Netanyahu is under indictment because of it. Okay? What happened is the Venezuelan president went to the ICC, filed against the United States and El Salvador, which El Salvador is a member of the ICC. So subject to the ICC, they did not pull out of it. The United States pulled out of it. But guess what? The ICC has limited jurisdiction during genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Yeah. Let's also remember that the ICC does have an army that it can use, the UN army. Okay? Let's put all of this in perspective. And American soldiers are a part of the peacekeeping troops in the UN. They are a part of it. They were given to the UN. And therefore, they are subject to the UN and not the United States, and they can't be recalled. Now, y'all think about that. While y'all are asking these questions, and I know it's the MAGAs trying to make excuses for him, I know. But there you have it. And all of this is just a Google away. So yes, that's why Putin doesn't leave Russia. That's why when Netanyahu leaves Israel, he comes to the United States, because there's safety here. Because why? Because we have a war criminal here too. How many of you guys feel safe with our current administration? How many of you feel like we will never be invaded, like no one can harm us here? How many of you feel like that? Well, Russia and China tried it yesterday. Came within 200 miles of Alaska. While our jets and Canadian jets scrambled to protect. Yeah. I can say this. Thank you, Canada, for protecting us. I can say this to the American pilots. Thank you for continuing to do your job. I know it's hard for you right now. Because we have a fucking joke as the Secretary of Defense. A fucking joke. And not only do we have a joke as the Secretary of Defense, we have a joke as the fucking President of the United States. So all of you who voted for him, thank you for making us a little bit less safe. Thank you for fucking us all up for money and racism and patriarchy. Thank you for making us appear weak to the world, because America's in chaos right now, and this is the perfect time to strike us. Thank you to our soldiers. And because I know it is hard for you right now. I don't mean any disrespect. I don't know why you would even put this on my page, but I'm going to answer you the best way I know how. Historically, we have ignored them. Historically, we don't recognize them as illegitimate, even though we were a part of establishing it, right? But we can't deal in history anymore, okay? Because you somehow seem to think that America has the respect of the world now, and it doesn't. Historically, and I'm going based on what you said, historically, Russia and China would have never drove jets toward our border, historically. But they did a couple days ago. And if it wasn't for our fighter pilots in Canada who scrambled to stop them, they would have crossed the border. They were 200 miles from Alaska. But historically, they've never done that before, right? Historically, Germany has always been on our side. They've always been Team America. America's the bastion of democracy, historically. But recently, the German premier came out and said, America is no longer the bastion of democracy. We can no longer depend or trust America. Historically, we've ran the Munich conference, but guess what? We didn't. You don't want to know why? Because your vice president went over there and basically advocated for racism and the mustache guy. Yeah, he did. He basically advocated for the AfD party in front of the world and international community. Okay? Historically, Japan has always been an ally. Historically, Japan has always been on our side. But who was selling their bonds last week? American Treasury bonds. Who was doing that last week? Japan, who is an ally. So you tell me. I'm going to tell you why I think Trump is going to. That's why we're in trouble. We're in some serious trouble. Historically, Canada would have never threatened us, but they did. Historically, but they threatened us when Trump raised those tariffs on them, and some of them followed through with it. But historically, that would have never happened, right? So see where your historical shit gets you? It doesn't leave room for reality in what's going on really right now. Now, about the UN can issue, the ICC can issue a warrant for Trump's arrest. It can, because it issued a warrant for Putin's arrest. But Putin is so isolated with power, and he's basically a one-man show in Russia, right? So they can't really get to him. But let me tell you something. If you threaten America's comfort and you try to put us in a position to where we have to fight for our lives, America will turn Trump over to the ICC. They will do it. Americans are fickle. And for you to think historically that we would protect Trump, you've lost your mind.
I just want everybody to know that you can report the Trump administration to the ICC, his human rights violations and his crimes against humanity. It's on their website under Contact Us. Happy Easter.
Okay, I'm getting some good questions here. This is what we need to understand. Putin never leaves Russia. Why? Because if he leaves Russia, he can be detained, right? He's isolated himself in Russia, and we can't really get to him because there is an arrest warrant issued for his arrest. There's also an arrest warrant issued for Netanyahu's arrest, right? And I know this guy said that on the website, we are not being investigated, but there is some behind the scenes investigations going on because Venezuela filed a complaint over those people that were taken to CCOT. So there is an investigation. It's preliminary, but it is still going on, guys. Also, if Trump gets an arrest warrant, we need to understand that the UN has a standing army. It does. Y'all need to understand that the ICC was formed by the United Nations. That's who formed it. And sometimes the ICC uses the United Nations Army to enforce its warrants. So, guys, the United Nations soldiers are in America at the UN. That big ass building that we have, and I think it's in Washington, D.C., that is not an American building. That's a United Nations building. Okay? That is, for lack of a better word, that's like if you go to Italy and you go to the Vatican. The Vatican is not a part of Italy. It is a separate country. It is a fucking country, a province. You know what I mean? Within a country. That's what the Vatican is. It's not a part of Italy. Right? So that's how the United Nations is here. We have no control over that building. Zero. And let's be real here, there are some American troops who were given to the UN as peacekeeping troops. So there are Americans who are a part of the UN army. And if something goes down and they issue an arrest warrant for Trump, our government can turn him over to them to face those charges. 100%. And then you guys got to get out your mind. The Supreme Court, SCOTUS, is not international. SCOTUS is domestic. So his immunity only stretches as far as our borders do. Internationally, that immunity don't mean shit. Happy Easter. Okay. Because Venezuela filed the complaint to the ICC about America and El Salvador, Venezuela is a member of the ICC, so the complaint is taken seriously, okay? There are still things that the ICC has to do. They have to follow their pattern, right? So their pattern is they do a preliminary investigation, then there's the initial assessment, and then after that, they look for jurisdiction accessibility. Well, they have jurisdiction because Venezuela and El Salvador are members of the ICC, right? They've accepted the Rome Statute. America is not. However, America has agreed and does promote certain statutes that the ICC has done. We have a very long history of promoting it, right? So with that being said, after they do the jurisdiction accessibility in the name of justice, the OTP, which is the investigators, go and look for credible evidence. Once they have once they find credible evidence, the OTP goes to the judge and asks for a warrant or a summons to appear at the court. Because America is not a member of the ICC, it did not accept the Rome Statute, the UN can find credible evidence to file for the nation because the nation's court or government won't. We are members of the UN. We are the ones with the biggest financial stake in the UN, right? So we are not going to pull out of the UN. I can guarantee that. That is, we are part of the Security Council. China and Russia are too. And we are not going to give up that seat. I don't care how good Trump is. But anyway, so that's how it's going to work. And even though Jack has been back there since the 31st of January, don't y'all think it's odd that he has been assigned to no case? Jack is amazingly quiet. I think they're in the preliminary investigation stage, and Jack Smith is a part of that. Okay, so the ICC has something called the Roman Statute, which means you're giving them jurisdiction to arrest your citizens if they do something wrong, right? That's why America pulled out of it in 1986. They didn't want to give anybody jurisdiction to arrest Americans, right? So the only time that the ICC gets involved when it's war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, right? And that's why Putin and Netanyahu are under arrest warrants right now for war crimes and genocide. Well, El Salvador has accepted the Roman Statute, and so has Venezuela, right? So they are attached to the ICC, and the ICC will investigate things when there is a complaint filed. Well, a complaint was filed against El Salvador. Why? Because the Trump administration shipped 200 Venezuelans without due process to CICOT, which is a prison which is known for human rights violations. Yeah. So why wouldn't they get involved? Why wouldn't they want to look at that? There are 200 people sitting in prison in a country they are not from, shipped there without due process from another country. And the fact that they didn't have due process is internationally known. And third thing is, we're not liked a lot right now, so whoever can come after our ass will. So Trump did the Aliens and Enemies Act. He declared that there was a national emergency, that we were being invaded by foreigners, illegals, and it was like a wartime situation. Those are his exact words, right? So what Trump is doing could technically be classified as a war crime, and not an authoritarian government, but a war crime. Even if our own Supreme Court says that these people are entitled to due process. So now you think about why they would get involved. Hey, everybody. Good evening. You know, I'll come on here to take off my makeup. And the stuff on my face is just the balm I use to take it off. This here stuff is great. I don't use wipes of any form. I use cloths and water. And then after that, I use this cleanser from e.l.f. to get off what I don't get off. But anyway, I want to come on here to say some stuff. What we need to understand, and I think what's missing, is there is a process to the ICC issuing an arrest warrant or a summons. It is a preliminary investigation. Then once they find cause, there is a extensive investigation. Then the OTP goes to the judge if they find credible evidence, and then the judge issues the warrant or the summons. And I don't want you guys to think that this is something that's going to happen like boom. It's not. And if it's Jack, he's going to be sure, right, that when he goes after him, that he's going to get him. I have no credible evidence that Jack is even working on it, guys. Only that Jack has not been assigned to a case, and he's been there since January 31st. I have only my gut and the fact that Jack thinks Trump is a criminal. And it was very clear about the treason part. I don't want you guys to get your hopes up that he's going to be arrested if he goes to visit the Pope, which I doubt he'll do that. But if he does it, okay. But I think that was just for show. And I think something's going to come up that he can't go, because I just think Trump doesn't want to leave the country right now. But at the same time, we need to understand that even if the ICC issues the arrest warrant for Trump or the summons, it is up to the American government on whether or not they hand him over. And if they choose not to hand him over, then the minute he leaves the country and he goes to another country that has an agreement with the ICC will ask for Trump, will ask them to turn him over. And that's what they did to, I think it was Netanyahu, when he went to Hungary. The ICC asked Hungary to turn Netanyahu over, and they refused. And that's why Hungary is pulling out of the ICC. So we got to look at it. Netanyahu has a very strong relationship with Hungary. Very strong. And they are trade partners. So we have to look at that. Do I think Britain will turn him over? Oh, hell yeah. Do I think Germany will turn Trump over? Oh, hell yeah. Germany can't stand Trump. They can't stand Vance either. And I think Jack knows that if he gets Trump, he has to get Vance. He has to get Mike Johnson. He has to get Trump's whole administration, all of the offices. He has to get them all and show them complicit. And then he has to get Mike Johnson, because Mike Johnson is third in line for the presidency. He's the Speaker of the House. So it has to be like a domino effect. Like, we have to get them all at the same time. We can't get one and then go after the other one. They all have to be got at the same time. And y'all that's what we're looking at. So every move has to be strategic. Every move has to count. Every move. We just can't start yanking. Okay, guys.
When Merrick Garland announced that there would be a new special counsel assigned to Donald Trump's case and that he was coming from The Hague, well, I just had one question. What the fuck is The Hague? The Hague is actually a city in the Netherlands, and the name of the city is called The Hague. In The Hague sits the International Court of Justice, which is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The International Criminal Court was established in 2002, and it's an independent judicial institution empowered to investigate and prosecute war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and the crime of aggression. There are currently 123 countries that are ICC members, giving the ICC authority under its founding treaty, the Rome Statute, to investigate and prosecute crimes committed by their nationals or by anyone on their territory. Upon my investigation, I discovered that back in 2020, the Trump administration issued sanctions against the ICC. Now, why would they do that? Well, because this beautiful black woman right here, who is one of the top chief counsels on the ICC, began investigations into Israel's crimes against Palestine and also the United States' possible involvement in crimes against humanity in the Afghanistan war. Not only was the Taliban accused of committing human rights violations, including torture, rape, etc., so was the United States military, the CIA, and other foreign forces. Here's what Trump had to say.
We withdrew from the Human Rights Council, and we will not return until real reform is enacted. For similar reasons, the United States will provide no support in recognition to the International Criminal Court.
So when the chief prosecutor announced that she was going to be investigating the U.S. and Israel, Trump went ahead and blocked it by establishing an executive order that would put sanctions against the chief prosecutor and any of her ICC co-workers, which basically mean that they were blocked from accessing U.S. property or engaging in U.S. banking transactions. And Putin was also looking at preliminary inquiries from the ICC. Biden has since lifted all of the imposed sanctions that Trump initiated on the ICC. So it just makes you wonder what exactly they're going to discover once they conduct all of their investigations. And in my opinion, it was damn sure no coincidence that they picked this particular prosecutor who was working in The Hague to come and be the special counsel on this case. What do you guys think?
The ICC has officially issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu as well as the ex-defense minister Gallant over war crimes in Gaza, as well as the commander of Hamas's military group. Now, at this point, this has been a long time coming if you have been following anything that has been happening in Palestine during this ongoing genocide. And I both want to say that I'm glad, but I also recognize that in this situation, if there is a country like the United States or any of these other countries that he has been visiting who refuse to comply with the ICC, will this really even matter? It's seemingly like the United States is going to continue to ignore the ICC, the ICJ, the UN as a whole. And all I can say is when we have gotten to the point where it is now impossible to track the number of people who have been killed in Palestine, they are now still using the 40,000 number that is months and months old. And when peer review, actually, I don't know if it's peer reviewed, but when research has been done and conducted specifically to estimate the number of people who have lost their lives, because it is impossible to track all of the people who have been killed by Netanyahu and by the ammunition being supplied by the United States. What else can that be described as but a genocide and ethnic cleansing and war crimes? Palestinians have been facing the worst atrocities known to mankind. And we have all been forced to sit here and watch it because our governments around the globe continue to side with the warmongers. I really hope that this does bring about something. But given that now we have now pushed beyond the year mark and are going to be starting 2025, I have a sinking suspicion in my gut that this is not going to be enough to stop what is going on.
If you haven't read this piece that was in slate.com, I strongly suggest it. It was so good.
Tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Just tell the fucking truth. It might hurt people's feelings. It might be scary for you. It might not be the most socially acceptable thing. But
What's the matter, Donald? You're having a terrible Easter. Is it because millions of people across the world and in the United States protested your regime once again this weekend? Is it because your approval is plummeting? Americans think you're handling the economy disastrously. Is it because, Donald, no countries want to cut a deal with you because you've extorted them over and over again? Is it because little kids are going to the protests and mocking you and mocking your regime? Why is it, Donald? Is it because Easter's a time when people spend the day with their family and show love and empathy, and you don't know what that means? All you have is vile hate in your heart. Here's what Donald Trump is posting this morning on Easter. Donald Trump posts, "Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane and well-known MS-13 gang members, and wife beaters back into our country." Pause. Donald, you are a felon. You, Donald, are a criminal. 34 times over, 34 felony counts, Donald. You are a sexual abuser. You were found liable for sexual assault. Hey, Donald, you are a fraud. I think if anyone needs to go to El Salvador, frankly, it's you and other criminals in your regime. But I digress. Let me keep on reading. Trump goes, Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective, and he puts that in caps, judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent it will never be forgotten, exclamation point. Sleepy Joe Biden purposefully blah, 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 wah, wah, wah. Like a little baby. No offense to little petulant babies, Donald, because they have far more maturity than you. But yes, Donald, it's what? A 9-0 Supreme Court ruling saying, you know what? We are a nation of due process, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. Is that the radical left ineffective judges you're talking about, Donald? Or how about the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal Judge, Judge Wilkinson, a Reagan appointee whose law clerks go on to work at the Supreme Court, someone who's viewed as one of the biggest conservative judges in this country, said that what you are doing is so unlawful and authoritarian, and wrote one of the most scathing opinions ever. Is that one of these leftist ineffective judges? Or maybe, Donald, you're a felon, you're a criminal, you're a fraud, you're a liar. Heck, even Justice Alito's dissent and that emergency order blocking the additional group of victims in Texas, the migrants, to be sent to the concentration camp in El Salvador, he was saying you need to comply with the order to provide due process to each of the migrants. Justice Alito, though, said, well, we believe that the Trump administration is going to do that, and he's going to follow our order, while 7 other justices of the Supreme Court said, we don't trust you, Donald. Donald Trump went on to post the following on Easter morning. We are together going to make America bigger, better, stronger, wealthier, healthier, and more religious than it has ever been before. And then he puts this in caps because he's wealthier, healthier, and more religious than it has ever been before. And then he puts this in caps because he's a deranged, demented lunatic. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Well, why don't we go in reverse order there, Donald? You want to make America more religious? This is coming from, again, you, a sexual abuser, somebody who brags about sexually assaulting women, and you say because you're rich, they let you get away with it, and then you go and speak in front of a group of young Republican teenagers and say that you heard that was one of the most courageous things you've ever done, calling sexually harassing women locker room talk, and that makes you a strong person. Okay, let's keep going. Healthier, you appointed anti-vaxxer RFK Jr. to say the most hateful things about autism, to already spread lies, and now we have measles outbreaks throughout the country as you gut the NIH, CDC, and as you attack people's Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Wealthier. Hey, Donald, the last time I looked at the markets, they are down significantly, down off their highs under former President Biden. In terms of wealthier, have people look at their 401ks and pensions and life savings. I think the facts, Donald, although you don't live in facts, you live in fraud, speak for themselves, that you are a disaster on the economy. So no wonder the new CNBC poll shows your approval on the economy dropping to the lowest of even your first term as well, lower than it even was during COVID. Oh, by the way, Donald, your approval rating among Republicans and GOP-leaning independents has fallen 15% at this point. 15%, Donald. America absolutely hates you. We're going to make us stronger. We're weaker by far. You have China now cutting deals with Japan, South Korea, Europe, Australia. You have NATO looking elsewhere. America is isolated as a pariah regime viewed by the world as even weirder than Kim Jong-un, Donald. So definitely didn't make us stronger, and you're going to make us bigger and better, Donald. In what way? By threatening to annex and conquer our allies who are now boycotting the United States of America's products and tourism. Our tourism is down so significantly from Canada and Europe and elsewhere. It's going to cost our nation at least $90 billion. And frankly, I think it's going to be more than that. But you don't care, Donald. there you are with Elon Musk and your billionaire buddies writing your stupid tweets and your dumb posts on Easter like a petulant little 3-year-old. No offense to petulant 3-year-olds. Oh, and then you posted this morning. You posted state regime media Fox. And here's the chyron from Fox. Experts warn China poised to interfere in Trump tariff deal with EU. I want you to watch this video that Donald Trump posted. I'm only going to show you like 30 seconds of it because the Fox host goes, what a difference an administration makes. China is so frazzled. They're so scared of the United States. They are now cutting deals with the European Union and they're blocking Donald Trump from doing deals with the European Union on tariffs. Look how good Donald Trump is doing. I'm watching this and I'm like, look, North Korea is watching this and saying, could we get these people to help Kim Jong-un? Here, watch this.
Fox News contributor and author of The 100-Year Marathon, Michael Pillsbury, joins us now. Michael, always great to have you on. So, first of all, what a difference a president makes. I've never seen China on the hot seat like this in a long time. Tell us what you're seeing and what you expect with this, potentially seeing China interfere with this EU trade deal, because it seems like that's the only way they can go.
Well, the Chinese want a much better deal with the Europeans than they have with us.
But y'all see what's going on there, right? The European Union's like, why would we cut deals with you, Donald, an extortionist? Okay, the European Union sent its chief negotiator to talk about the tariffs and left saying, what the hell is Donald Trump even talking about? Japan's chief negotiator left the White House without a deal, saying, what are these crazy people in the White House even talking about? Trump can't even cut deals with our allies on these reciprocal tariffs, which are based on a fake and fraudulent formula. Surprise, surprise, the fraud makes fraudulent formulas to attack allies more than adversaries. And by the way, that formula was not applied to Russia. It was not applied to the Taliban, but it was applied to the European Union and to penguins and to our own military bases on foreign islands. Absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of absolutely ridiculous, on Easter, here's the headline from Politico. Bonkers crazy pants. American diplomats shaken by reports of new State Department cuts. Purported executive order by Donald Trump, which is going to be released this week, calls for slashing State Department offices and bureaus, overhauling how diplomatic posts work, getting rid of like all of these diplomatic outposts that promote democracy in Africa and Europe and elsewhere. One U.S. diplomat described the draft to Politico as bonkers crazy pants. You could give infinite monkeys infinite typewriters and they would come up with something better than that. And this follows the State Department shutting down its foreign offices to block Russian disinformation because Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in an actual release, this is real, says protecting and championing free speech at the State Department, that Russia's disinformation campaign in the U.S. is a form of free speech that should be promoted. That's in his release right there. There you have it. Trump's Easter. We'll keep you posted with more here on the Midas Touch Network. Thank you for watching. Thank you for having us here at the Midas Touch Network in your homes on this Easter day. For all who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. To those who celebrate Passover, happy last day of Passover. For all of those just enjoying the weekend, enjoy your weekend. We appreciate your support so much. And hit subscribe and let's get to 5 million subscribers. Have a good one.